Hello, friends. We have author Santosh Desai with us today, whose new book, Memes for Mummyji, is out on the shelves. The book talks about how smartphones have transformed our day to day life. Welcome, Mr. Desai.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Memes for Mummyji, it seems like a very playful kind of book, but it has some very serious stuff inside. There are articles on various topics. So, like, when was it that you realized that the memes demand a book?
Yeah. Well, I think, in some ways that has been inescapable for the last several years. The fact that, understanding how this whole new digital culture is changing us, I think has become so apparent, in our everyday life and even everyday conversations. So I think in fragments, all of us recognize the fact that it's rewiring our brains, it's changing the nature of public discourse. It is giving also opportunities of a kind that a lot of people never had. So there's a lot to unpack here. There's so much happening, and things that it enables, it empowers, things that it
Mm,
also worsens, things that it makes absolutely terrible. I mean, so it's a whole jumble of new kinds of behaviors, new kinds of attitudes that we see, that ourselves being shaped by. And I think it just so over a period of time, I think I started writing about it in my articles, and then I think I think the idea that this is not just small individual changes, but this is a large collective shift that is happening. I think that began to
mm,
coalesce, and I think that's where the
mm.
book came about.
Okay. So, how much time did you like? What is the span of these articles? How much time did you take to complete the book cover to cover? Like, how many
So,
years?
no, so it took me about 3 years. Of course, a lot of the
Mm,
material was available because I'm doing this column, so a lot of material, but
mm.
almost all of it was kind of redone, in order to
Okay.
be current and to make sense to today's audience. So it took me about 3 years of
Mm.
putting that together.
Okay, okay. And why memes for Mummy ji? Why not memes for Papa ji?
Mummyji, because I think in some ways, historically, the bridging of the gap, I think, becomes a little more clear when we talk about Mummyji, because the older generation, women in particular, had this relationship with technology which was very distant and fearful. Also, because I think my earlier book was called Mother Pious Lady, so it just felt like that there was some sort of continuity.
Okay. But but do you see a difference in the two genders in how they take to the technology, how they work around the technology?
I think, of course, there are differences in terms of content preferences. Clearly, I
Hmm.
mean, the kind of
Hmm.
content that women gravitate to. I think this has been researched and recorded as is different from what men gravitate
Hmm.
to. The language used
Hmm.
also is different. Also, the effect, the women's kind of when they come onto a public domain like this and a public platform like this, the challenges they face are completely different from men, because the kind of trolling
Hmm.
that every woman faces by being on so their experience of the digital world is fundamentally different from that of men. Even at a structural
Hmm.
level, I think there are some differences in terms of how they are used. And historically, technology always has been, the way technology has presented itself has been with a very masculine kind of a vocabulary, and it has been
Hmm.
created by men, and therefore in some senses there is encoded in technology is a male leaning. You find that's why it's interesting that in India, WhatsApp is so powerful.
Hmm.
WhatsApp is powerful because it is so simple to use that it cuts through both the gender and the age barriers, and
Hmm.
which is the reason why it has become, as dominant and as fundamental to
Hmm.
our life as it has.
Hmm. So that means, like using, like you said, that WhatsApp is like basic and it is easy to use. So there, the difference between the two genders, is it reflected in that also, or
That is
it
minimized there.
is at par?
It is minimized. It is
Okay.
minimized there. There you find that, again, the content kind of differences you will still perhaps see what
Hmm.
men tend to
Hmm.
forward, for
But
instance, versus what women. But the use
hmm.
of technology, is broadly
Ah,
at par. There is no fundamental difference.
okay. Okay, okay. And you say that mobile phone didn't transform Indian so much as it magnified what was already there, like
Yeah.
our
So
reliance on the family ecosystems and all. So you like to explain on that?
So my argument is the fact that it did transform us at an individual level, but it amplified what
Hmm.
was existing at the collective level. So, for instance, the
Hmm.
family has become stronger.
Hmm.
The family unit. I mean, WhatsApp works through family codes. What is important is the fact that the codes have not changed, right?
Hmm.
The wedding has become grander, has become more public, has become a performance, but the importance of the wedding has not changed. Right. So if you were to look at, if you look at similarly in politics, you find that the spectacle of politics may have, but we are able to go back to things like religion and go back to caste much more strongly through modern technology than earlier. So in a sense, what is
Hmm.
happening is that the collective, and my explanation for this is the fact that
Hmm.
in an earlier time, the public discourse was always very controlled. If you look at through human history, who gets the broadcasting medium, right? Who has control and access to the
Hmm.
broadcasting medium was among the most tightly
Hmm.
controlled assets in the world. Only very
Yeah.
few. And it went through a very selective process. So there was some selection and scarcity both. So selectivity and scarcity created this whole sense of the aura and the credibility also of mass media, of people who had the microphone, and the rest of us listened,
Hmm.
right? We didn't have any access.
Hmm.
Suddenly, without any warning, that has
Hmm.
changed. Everybody has the microphone.
Changed.
Everybody
Hmm.
potentially has a global audience. So the kind
Hmm.
of the level of discourse and the nature of discourse, which was selective, elitist also, exclusionary sometimes, but also very regulated and selective. So there were filters that you went through. Not
Hmm.
anything could get into print. Not anything could get into television. Now anything gets into print, right? Print being now
Hmm.
your mobile phone, right? So the level of
Hmm.
discourse now is pitched at a much more emotional, primal kind of a level. So,
Hmm.
which is the reason why collectively our
Hmm.
more basic, more primary instincts get play and get amplification, which is what pulls the
Hmm.
collective towards what is existing, and it amplifies our core impulses rather than push towards change. But at an individual level, we find ourselves much more connected to an outside world, and therefore individually our lives are more convenient. We get things in 10 minutes. I mean, so many different ways, right? It has changed us. But
Hmm. Hmm.
that's the interesting paradox, if you like, that and
Hmm.
between how individuals are receiving technology and how societies are receiving it.
Hmm. So that means it is also bringing out how the society actually is. Earlier, there was no way to portray the real face of the society. Now you see the real face.
You're so right. I mean, that is exactly what is happening. So in a sense,
Hmm.
I think our protective mechanism in society was hypocrisy.
Hmm.
And hypocrisy is normally seen in a negative term, but it is what keeps
Hmm.
politeness. It is what we call manners, what we call decorum, is
Hmm.
all hypocrisy, right? It is appearing to
Hmm.
others as we are not. It is pretending to be
Hmm.
what we are not, because we
But you're
understand,
not.
yeah, that
Hmm.
friction needs to be avoided. And also there were consequences, right? So if I to somebody's
Hmm.
face say that I think you're an idiot, or I think you are a bore, that has
Hmm.
consequences. Right. Today, what has
Hmm.
happened is two things I think that have changed things, apart from the mass access everyone has. One is
Hmm.
immediacy, the fact that I can say anything instantly. Right.
Hmm.
Now, in an earlier world, you couldn't print anything instantly. You couldn't go on television instantly. Right. So
Hmm.
so whenever
Hmm.
you actually went in any public forum, you had to be measured. You had time to organize your thinking, and therefore
Hmm.
the distance from emotion was guaranteed
Hmm.
by the fact that you could not act in the here and now. So that has changed. The other thing that has changed is
Hmm.
anonymity. Even
Hmm.
all these people also, to somebody's face, they will not be able to say the things they do. But here you are hiding behind
Hmm.
anonymity. You are far away. You have no consequences whatsoever to your actions. So I
Hmm.
think the absence of
Hmm.
consequences also creates
Hmm.
this sense that I can get away with anything. And in doing so, as you so rightly pointed out, we reveal who we really are. We reveal
Hmm.
and that is the phase, and we find ourselves able to do that at all times, at in everything. So whether we are reacting to a
mm,
sports situation where, about Virat Kohli, our core feelings that are gendered about how we
mm,
feel, women speak out, our our feelings of the discrimination that we carry in our, deep down about others,
mm,
whatever that form of
mm,
others is, all of them comes out
mm,
into the and the second
mm,
order effect of that is the fact that it's not just an individual phenomenon. I bring it, I feel that way,
mm.
I say it, and then suddenly I find there are thousands and millions of people who feel the same way. So suddenly
Thinking
it
like,
gets legitimized, right?
mm,
It gets legitimized
yeah.
being able to call somebody a derogatory caste name or calling a woman
Mm,
something. I'm not alone. So suddenly now there is this new order of so the new normal is the fact that we can say things
mm,
that we never say for because there was a
mm,
social cost attached to it. Now there is no social cost. In fact, if anything, there is social reward, not just a
mm,
social reward, there is a technological reward, because the more extreme my views, the more I get rewarded by the social media app. So this
true,
is the
true.
cycle that is fundamentally
Mm,
changing and making us much more sort of extreme versions of ourselves.
mm. So, don't you think that this is not a very, I know earlier also portraying something, someone who you are not is also as bad as o- bringing out everything out in the open. Don't you think that this will also lead to like frictions in the society and
Absolutely. Sorry, please,
hmm,
please. What you are saying?
frictions in the society and people get polarized? Like, see, suppose I say something derogatory about someone, and there are 10 people favoring me that, but that doesn't mean that it is a correct thing to do.
No, absolutely.
So
I think don't we see that?
legitimizing a wrong thing, even if like you have a majority with you, it doesn't bode well for the society or for the nation.
No, you're absolutely right. I
So,
think you're absolutely right.
hmm,
I do think that what you are seeing, and aren't we seeing that already? We are seeing that, right?
hmm,
Not just in India, we
true.
are seeing that globally. We are seeing that globally,
Hmm,
and and and
hmm,
then also, I mean, yes, hypocrisy in an earlier time, you can call it wrong, but it is a part of what we call polite social discourse, right?
in
So it
some
is.
way, it was keeping the society coherent also.
Absolutely. See that it is recognition of the fact that, look, all of us, fundamentally can have friction against each other, right? And therefore, you
Hmm,
create social norms in a way that you minimize that friction, because
hmm,
the
hmm,
intent was to keep order. See, the underlying
hmm,
intent is to keep order, and
hmm,
disorder was the exception, right?
hmm,
Here, fundamentally, order is not the underlying principle.
hmm,
It is you're generating what you are generating is what you call engagement, because that is what the
hmm,
technology wants. It wants you to be more active.
hmm,
How are you
hmm,
more active? Not when you're trying to keep order or equilibrium.
hmm,
When you create disorder and
hmm,
equilibrium, that is when you generate more conversation and more engagement, right?
hmm,
We are much
hmm,
more active and passionate when we are fighting each other than we don't passionately agree. We are being led in some ways by
hmm,
this visible algorithms to sort of act in this way, but there are real life
hmm.
consequences of this, right? We are seeing more friction, right? It is not staying only on online, it is also coming out, and we see that in life around us.
In real life. So what is it? Is it a, what do we say? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's not. It's both, right? I mean, that is the reality of life. Life is complex, right?
Hmm,
And it is not such a simple thing. There are some amazing things that it has
hmm,
enabled, but there are some
hmm,
terrible things that is unleashed. And on balance,
hmm,
I would. So that's why I'm saying, your individual lives feel much better, but what is a collective future as a result of this is a question mark, right?
hmm,
So I think
hmm,
so that's what is happening. We are all kind of, in a way, people who can afford to live in their own bubbles and
hmm,
are protecting themselves, and in their own life they're doing well. They travel, they go out, they get deliveries in 10 minutes, and if you are
hmm,
affluent enough, then you find ways to try and disengage from this world,
hmm,
and you treat this, the what is happening on the mobile phone as, as a distraction, and it's something,
mm,
but it's not something you can escape forever. And
mm,
so to my mind, my overall picture to me is a darker picture than what otherwise it would be, given all the benefits of this
yeah.
technology. Because at a collective level,
Mm,
I'm not seeing a reason to feel optimistic, given how politics is changing, given how the discourse is becoming so self oriented, right? So for instance, in the US, the whole,
mm,
or Europe and US, the whole immigration argument that is taking place, the rise of the
mm,
kind of the alpha male discourse, which is trying to push back the gains women have made over the last few decades,
mm,
right?
mm,
Uh, the use of religion that we are seeing in India and elsewhere, where there's a much stronger,
mm,
much more muscular form of religion that is taking
mm,
shape. The resurfacing of caste, and the caste pride that we see being talked about much more openly. All of these are
mm,
things that are worrying at a larger level. Just as much as women are in small town India are getting more empowered in their own personal
mm,
capacities, just as
mm,
a vegetable vendor can today receive money in UPI, and people can
mm,
start a business on the internet, and education has
mm,
become. So all of these are you can't run away from one and pretend only one
mm,
side is happening. But it is a complex
mm,
picture. But overall, because of the fact that the societal regression, I think, has more deeper long term effect than individual progression. I think
mm,
that is why, on the whole, my own sense is a little darker than what it should have been, perhaps, in some
mm.
ways.
True, true, true. No, but individually also, uh, progression, I don't know. I am very skeptical about it also, whether individuals are progressing. Like, it is one thing to be connected to the technology and being able to do your business or connect with the world. But it is another thing to be only inside the technology and be disconnected with your neighbor.
Yeah,
So at
so that is
individual level also, it's not,
fair. So that's what I'm
to
saying. No,
me, it's not. Hmm,
yeah. So just as at, just as there will be some societal advantages also. So I'm just saying, in
hmm,
every case, it is not
hmm.
technology does not have any inherent responsibility to be good or bad. You
Yeah,
know, it
exactly. It is how
it
we
has
use it.
it's also it has a structure. See, I think the key is that it has
Hmm,
structure which enables certain kinds of uses. Those kinds of uses are
hmm,
good or bad, right?
hmm.
So technology, I would not say
True.
is innocent. Is not innocent,
Hmm.
but it is not intentional. Uh,
Ah,
uh, uh, it has effects, but those effects are not necessarily
hmm,
there. When creating the technology, nobody has any sense of the social changes that it will bring
hmm,
about. Right? You are trying to solve a
hmm,
problem, and when you solve that
hmm,
problem, it has a whole set of effects that you
hmm.
don't begin to comprehend.
Hadn't thought about, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. And you see that the digital universe has not replaced the social world. It has become the hyperactive extension of the existing social world,
yes,
right?
yes, yeah. So
Hmm,
if
hmm,
so, I mean, the fact is that we can only understand the new in terms of the old. Right.
hmm,
For instance, if you look at a lot
hmm,
of the digital vocabulary, you will find so
hmm,
many metaphors from nature. Right. We talk about the cloud. We talk about streaming.
hmm,
Right. If you actually go deeper into it, you'll find so many uses of the word,
hmm.
of nature. Why? Because you can't understand a new phenomenon unless you put it in terms of the old, right? So
Ah,
digital societies will have their own characteristics, right? Because of the
hmm,
structural differences, things are instant, right? So it's possible for us to have this conversation visually, which was not
hmm.
possible earlier.
Yeah,
It's
earlier.
possible for
Hmm,
AI to summarize this conversation, transcribe it, which was not possible. So there's
hmm,
a bunch of things. Of course, technology changed,
hmm, hmm,
but fundamentally,
hmm,
we are bringing ourselves into this world, and we can only do so in terms that we are familiar with.
hmm.
That's why it's
True.
an extension of existing social life in a very, very,
Hmm,
like you said, in a very hyper kind of a real sense.
hmm,
But
hmm,
nevertheless, it has always built upon society as it has existed.
hmm, hmm. So the book Memes for Mummyji talks mainly like about urban middle class India, right? So what
Yeah.
about the rural India and what about the classes, other parts of the society, even in the urban India?
Yeah. So I think the the mobile phone has changed everyone's life in some form, as
Mm,
long as you have access to it. Of course, if you don't have access to it, then you are feeling the effects of it without actually participating in it. Then you are just
mm,
the recipient of those effects, right?
mm,
But now I think the smartphone also is very well penetrated in India. So
mm,
it is
mm,
it does speak for a significant majority of India now. It is not just a
mm,
minority that it speaks to. I think what is happening with
mm,
the rural poor, I think what we have seen is in India, even now, if you look at the politics of it, you find that the exclusion continues. There is no they are not part of this world, because if you're not really um, uh, you know the beneficiaries of this, then you end up being on the other side, and which is the reason why
mm,
it's interesting that even in the government's kind of posture from thinking of subsidies as freebies today, if you were to look
mm,
at the last few elections, they are entirely based on direct transfer of money. you know
mm,
and and
mm,
to me, the problem that I think the rural poor, even the urban poor, have,
mm,
I think, is a problem that I have referred to, which is the fact that is the
mm,
absence of soft infrastructure in India. Is the fact that we are very fond of hard infrastructure. The roads that we have built, airports we have built, and that's some of it has been very good work. And no, in fact, a lot
mm,
of it has been very good work, to be fair. But we
mm,
just cannot change the soft infrastructure, which means our trust systems don't work, our oversight systems don't work, our professionals don't are not professional enough, our
mm,
institutions don't work, and in fact are being weakened. Which means that you build a road, fantastic, you know thousands and thousands of kilometers of road, but that road will have potholes in a year, if not in 6 months,
mm,
right? Because the contracting, the terms of contract and the process is full of corruption, which means there are a whole lot of people who make money on it, and therefore the job is shoddy. You cannot trust. Our cities are flooded every year because we have all the laws and all the regulations, but none of them are followed because somebody pays off somebody else, and therefore there is no long term. Effectively, there is no long term planning, right? And it's not just that, it's everything. There is this sense our air, of course, is polluted, and there is no action taken because there is nobody responsible, because electoral politics, people, urban centers don't count. So what is happening
mm,
here is that, and the poor face the brunt of this the most, because
mm,
whatever has to reach them evaporates before it reaches them, right? Because of the
mm,
fact that the soft infrastructure. And it's not just that, it's like you can't trust a doctor today, you can't trust a teacher today. School teachers don't land up at schools. At rural schools, you will
mm,
find money that has been taken to build permanent schools is not used. So there are even now
mm,
schools that are run under trees in rural India. You will find any number of examples where teachers are drawing salaries, but nobody comes to school.
mm,
There is nobody looking at that, right? So in this is the problem. See, the fundamental, to my mind, and if you trace this problem, it goes back to the fact that as a society we are so entrenched in our own ways. Hierarchy is so important to us, right? The fact that we
mm,
are we are this idea of compromise is a very essential part of how we think of the world. It has to be compromise.
mm,
Nothing can happen perfectly. It has to be, वो तो थोड़ा लेन देन तो करना पड़ेगा ना, मेरा वरना कैसे हो चलेगा. There is always that sense that that's how it works. And to
mm,
my mind, and politically it is not advantageous, because if you had
mm,
institutions had to work, if the police actually, if you could
mm,
actually file an FIR every time you wanted to, you can't in India. You can't file a simple thing like the first information report is not the first information report, because you can't file it. The
mm,
police will say no, you can't file it, right? Police
mm,
people, what is the police action today? It is, they are brokers. So if you have a problem, they will go to the other person who has a problem. They'll say, "Chalo, हम आप लोगों की settlement करवाते हैं. उसमें से मेरा this is my cut." They are middlemen
mm,
who are brokering.
middlemen.
Judiciary
Mm,
speaking, the language of communitarian language. You was talking about okay, what is not right and what is not appropriate and what is not socially correct. And
mhm,
they're talking in religious terms, right? They're using, so fundamentally any and the media, of course, less said the better. I mean,
mm,
it is
mm,
completely kind of now become totally not just ineffective but actually actively counterproductive. So in a situation
mm,
like this, and that's why my argument always is that in India we want progress but we don't want change. uh,
mm.
and unless we want change, and change means the people in power have to give up their power, that
Right.
nobody's going to do.
I- I- Actually, we don't want to change. I would say that
That's the
I want
point.
progress, but I don't want
I
to
don't want,
change.
I don't want to. So that's what, no,
Mm,
I will complain about hierarchy,
mm,
but if I am the
mm.
beneficiary of that, I will not complain.
I'm fine with it. True.
With other people breaking traffic rules, but
Mm,
we break
mm,
the rules when there is a need.
mm,
We'll keep
mm,
shouting at other people, look at this, there is no discipline, there is nothing. But the moment we are
mm,
stuck,
mm,
"Yung ulta karke nikal lo," to we will do it. So I'm just
mm,
saying,
mm,
this, because that is the way that we accept the world, right? And that is our mental model of the world. So given
mm,
the fact that, uh, you know, and that, and it's not as if it can't change at all. So, for instance, some things have changed. Airports, for instance, one of the problems we've always had in public places was our toilets. Stinky,
mm,
terrible toilets, everywhere. Look at
mm,
airports today.
mm,
They have solved that problem because the system takes itself
mm,
seriously. If traffic policemen took traffic seriously, we would take it seriously, right?
mm,
Problem is, of course, our instinct is of a certain kind, but the systemic kind of an intervention needs to be honest, needs to be true to itself, needs to believe in itself.
mm,
Till that happens, we are on
mm,
this path where people who have the ability to get ahead in life, they get ahead in life. Opportunities have grown, but the obstacles
mm,
are the same. Caste is still an obstacle. you know Technology allows you to
mm,
bypass some obstacles, and in that it is useful,
mm,
but eventually it cannot override the 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 centuries of. I mean, one metaphor that I use is that of the sediment and the flow. you know
mm,
uh, Indian society is like this accumulated sediment, right? And
mm,
new ideas are the flow. So governance and politics and democracy was a flow.
mm,
Bureaucracy was supposed to be the flow.
mm,
Education is supposed to be the flow. Technology is supposed to be the flow, right? Which is cutting through
mm,
that sediment, right? And trying to make a way. But more and more,
mm,
these the things that were supposed to cut through have themselves got compromised. So
mm,
politics, which was supposed to transform society, has been transformed by society. It is an extension of society. You run
mm,
politics on basis of
mm,
caste, right?
mm,
Uh,
mm,
Judiciary, all these things, bureaucracy has become a reflection of society, right? Uh,
mm, mm,
Technology was the one thing that felt like it has, because it comes from somewhere else, felt that it would be able to make a headway, and it made some headway.
mm,
But even technology fundamentally is has to work through society and finds itself,
mm,
it has become sluggish, that flow. So that's where we are,
mm,
so it has changed things on the surface at the individual level, but when it comes to
mm,
the deeper structures, it finds itself unable to
mm,
make head.
mm. So two things I'll ask you here. Uh, like from what we're talking about India and Indians. So do these problems exist only in India, or these are there everywhere? These are basic human problems. So everywhere human beings are there, these problems are there. One thing is that. And another thing is, you talked about media and how the mainstream media is compromised and all that. So in such a situation, having this social media, like the power in the hand of a common man, does that bode well or not?
Yeah. So on the first question, is it an India specific problem? Is it a global problem? Parts of the problem are global. Once the rise of this,
Mm,
what is called as this, this kind of a populist nationalist kind of a discourse is global, because again it comes from
mm,
the fact that the public discourse is in the hands of a different kind of people. and therefore that the public level gets pitched at that level. So that is a global
mm,
phenomenon. Certainly, that is not
mm,
specific to India. I think what is Indian is the fact that our social system fundamentally is very sophisticated and is fundamentally defensive in nature, right? Because its role, as it imagined itself, was to defend itself against outside influences, right? So therefore,
mm,
it has developed a very sophisticated mechanism to
mm,
kind of, on the surface, you know kind of accept change, but at, deeper down, to sort of be strengthen itself, right? And it's a
mm,
and which is the reason why change is so extraordinarily difficult in India, because we have a very, very
mm,
sophisticated mechanism, and we have centuries of practice in resisting change, right? And it has become such
mm,
an, implicit part of our mindset, that it becomes very difficult to shift, right? It is not, I wouldn't say it is, it is a culture is something that responds, you know uh,
mm,
context. So there is nothing like fixed culture that cannot be changed. But in India,
mm,
that context itself, through time, historically, was was that we were the defenders, and therefore we had to defend ourselves against other sort of shifts, and
mm,
very volatile shifts that were happening at a certain level. So I think that is what makes India different, which is the fact that it
mm,
is, uh, change is difficult everywhere, but in India it's a little more difficult than even what it would be elsewhere. So that's the first
mm,
part of the question. The second is
mm,
that, is this whole democratization of media and the fact that we are not that dependent on mainstream media, isn't
mm,
that a good? It's a yes. So there are parts of it that are very good, but right, but
mm,
similarly, democratization doesn't mean only one kind of voice, right? It means all kinds of voices.
mm,
So just as you have the
mm,
very good kind of a, firstly, the question is, why should mainstream media be the problem? I mean, to me, that is, of
mm,
course, the one question, right? Mainstream media has no reason
mm,
to be the problem, right? It should not be the problem. It should be, in fact, you
mm,
know, uh, the dominant voice,
mm,
that is because it is organized. There is money behind it. There is
mm,
power behind it, right? So that is one
mm,
part of it. The other part is that, yes, we are lucky to have strong independent voices that
mm,
allow us to, therefore, sort of give our opinion on things that otherwise we would not be able to. And that's very fortunate. But at the same
mm,
token, there are also, so if you were to go to YouTube today, and you would see some hair raising, absolutely hair raising content that is,
mm,
very divisive, that is explicitly casteist, explicitly misogynist, you know,
mm,
and that does extremely well. So just as you will have voices that are, that are uplifting, where you have common people coming in and talking about and sharing how their
mm,
lives and their
mm,
ideas, and some of them are
mm,
really, really, very, very positive, very, very powerful.
mm,
You will have the other side also.
mm,
So I mean, so in that sense, it becomes, I mean, it is, it's a free for all in that sense, both in good and bad ways.
mm, mm. Do you think the government can do anything about it?
It can, but why would it? The point is that, if the purpose of, what are the big, purpose of governance in India, and this is true for every party, perhaps a little more so for this one, but it's true for every party,
Mm,
is first and foremost to find a way to stay in power. Then
mm,
why would you want? And each of these actions means shifting power, in fact, away from itself to institutions. It is when the
mm,
election commission is truly independent, when the judiciary is truly
mm,
independent, when the media is truly independent. It is that
mm,
when democracy functions as it is meant to. But
mm,
there is no
mm,
interest. What is the self-interest in allowing that to happen? Because you are not wedded to democracy, no party. You are wedded to your being in power in a democracy, right? So
mm,
if that is the structure, and since the institutions have already suffered through time, through, time, we've seen this, the institutions weaken. Why? So I'm not saying that's the reason why. What is the reason? What is the impetus? Unless
mm,
people, society does not seem to be the reason. There seems to be
mm,
acceptance of this. This is the way we are, right? So
mm,
change, the impetus for change is not coming from there. There is some urban
mm,
unhappiness, but that is not
mm,
significant in number, and those are not the kind of people who will actually take any action. barring maybe
mm,
tweeting about it to change. So that is not
mm,
happening. So where does change come
mm,
from? Where does change come from? And the government fundamentally has no reason to let go of its of the power that it has.
mm,
The
mm,
bureaucracy is government's handmaiden. So I mean,
mm,
so while we can talk in the abstract about change and say that eventually things must change and eventually
mm,
people will speak, or eventually you will have a government that will do this, in a very real sense I'm unable to see. Of course sometimes things happen
mm,
very suddenly and in a way that you don't
mm,
anticipate them, and that is always possible.
mm,
But
mm,
that one can't foresee. What one can foresee, I am not seeing a reason
mm.
for any force that is in the making or that is developing that could change things substantially.
Okay. Mm. So we are like, shall I say, doomed to live like this only?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be that pessimistic, but like I said, I don't find the reasons for. I don't want to be pessimistic, but
Mm,
I struggle to find the reasons for
mm,
optimism.
mm. That's one and the same thing. I I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't see the reason to be optimistic also.
No, so
Anyway.
I don't want
Mm,
to be, but I guess I am, right? I
mm,
mean,
mm. Yeah. So coming back to memes, do you think that like memes have now become like folklore of the current times, like modern folklore? Memes are modern folklore.
that's very
It's
interesting way of thinking about it. That's a very interesting way
mm,
of thinking about it. In some ways,
mm,
yes, except that folklore carries within it memory. Memes don't carry memory.
mm,
Memes celebrate the
mm,
moment. uh, they are the difference between, say, analog photography and digital photography. Analog
mm,
photography is about memory. We put them in
mm,
albums. We go back and digital memory is about recording the moment. You can't go back to your phone and
mm,
see anything. There's like 10,000 pictures. There's no way to remember something through, it is not a memory device.
mm,
Similarly, memes are amplifying the present. They are not memory devices. You will not remember
mm,
yeah, a 2 years ago meme, today. You won't remember it maybe in a week's time.
mm,
So
mm,
to that extent, memes, what they do is they are able to very sharply bring something in focus, which is happening,
mm,
and they are able to celebrate a
mm,
certain moment, and are
mm,
able to sort of create a little kind of a asset out of that moment, so it becomes a little recirculatable kind of currency, but it is transient
mm,
currency, uh, whereas folklore is not transient currency.
mm. But memes also present like something which one site, like an author would say in, say, 500 words, a meme will say in maybe 5 words.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is a very compressed
Mm,
form of
mm,
wisdom, actually. Very compressed form of
yeah.
wisdom, and you are absolutely right. It is
Mm,
able to capture that
mm,
in a very interesting, short kind of a way, which
yeah.
is so
Yeah.
aligned to the technology because it needs short, interesting kind of
Uh, uh,
nuggets.
and
But
and
it is
and times are like that, uh, like today's younger generation, they don't have patience. Most of them, I won't say all, but most of them, they don't have patience to read long stories. They just want short ones.
absolutely,
But
absolutely. I mean, we are all used to that right now. More and more, our brains are.
mm,
I mean, you know, I
uh,
mean, today I can say for myself, I have been an avid reader all my life. But today, if somebody gave
mm,
me an 800-page book, I would be gulping very hard.
mm,
I'm saying, okay, yes, this is.
mm,
It feels a little bit like work, whereas it never did. It was always pleasure.
mm,
It was always,
mm,
oh, big books. Oh, I can savor it for
mm,
a much longer time. Now it
mm,
feels like, okay, that's a little, that's, I don't know how I'm going to do
mm,
that, and our,
mm,
because our brains get rewired. We
mm. Yeah,
we are able to consume
yeah.
much shorter. Our, it's true, as everybody says, our attention spans have become shorter. I mean, that's inevitable.
Mm, mm. So memes are changing us or reflecting us? The
Both as
reflecting the change in us.
both as always,
Both.
any form of representation, I think that
Mm,
is true for, whether it's
mm,
cinema, everything. I mean, it is that, right? It changes us, but
mm.
it fundamentally reflects who we are, right?
Reflects.
At the same time. So memes, I think, reflect who we are by the fact that we want this kind of a compression, we want that
Mm,
recirculability, we want stimulation, right? So it must
mm,
tickle us in some form. Only then will
mm,
we recirculate it. So it is that it's a virus, right? It is like a virus,
mm,
right? It is a very compressed.
mm,
It carries in it effects of a very high order, but it comes in a very compressed form,
mm,
and it transmits
mm,
itself very easily, right? So it
mm,
is, we say going viral. That is not an accident. Actually,
mm,
it is exactly
mm.
going viral, right? It is a virus
Exactly.
that travels like that. So it is
Mm,
contagion. It is contagion. So
mm,
so in that
mm,
sense, it but so it's like that. It comes out of where we are and who we are, but it in transmitting, it has effects that also shapes who we are. So I think it is
mm,
it is it is a little bit of both, but I
mm,
think to a certain extent, it is not any individual meme that changes us. It's a culture of meme that
mm,
changes. The
mm,
individual meme may not, may just provide, I mean, there may be the
mm,
occasional meme that might change us,
mm,
because it is that fundamental. But by and large, memes don't change us
mm,
singularly. They plurally they change us.
mm, mm. So basically, they reflect us in a more than they change us,
In many ways,
right?
yes. In many ways, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So did writing this book, these articles, change you in a way you consume memes? You have been seeing memes all this while, but like after writing on this, and like obviously so many thoughts go into while you're writing an article on memes. So did it change you how you consume? Did you develop some newfound respect for people who are writing drawing memes or working on these?
Absolutely. I think it's a, I, the over the years, I must say that I have a huge amount of respect for creators, of all kinds, including for memes, of reels, TikTok. When it was there, I was a huge fan of TikTok, because I think
Okay.
it has unleashed a certain creative side to people, that I think is quite remarkable. I think,
Mm,
and that's why, I mean, I'm not one of those who bemoans the fact that, uh, I don't have a, I'm not a technology kind of a person who opposes technology fundamentally. I just feel that
mm,
every age has its own kind of
mm,
grammar. So and if you look at, for
mm,
instance, I mean, one example, for instance, is slightly unrelated, but
mm,
the average length of the English sentence, and the numbers may be wrong, but if you go back, 100 years, it was, I think, 46. Then 50
mm,
years ago, it came down to 28. Now it is down to 14 or something, right? But the change
mm,
has been happening for 100 years. I mean, it's not just now, right?
mm,
So
mm,
our attention spans have been shortening, and thank God, because they were
mm,
highly boring, right? So I mean, the average political speech has also come down in length, from being, an
mm.
hour and a half to two, to now nobody has patience beyond 20 minutes, right? So, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and and that's great, So I'm just saying, things
Mm,
do, but the same thing you may not say for classical music, right? A performance now,
mm,
you don't develop the rag in the same way that you did earlier. So I think I'm just saying that that is a constant change that has been happening. So I'm not somebody who bemoans it all the time, but I do think that
mm,
it has shaped. It has, the course of observing this. I think both my respect has grown, as has
mm,
concern. Right, both of things have happened simultaneously. Saying
mm,
how,
mm, mm,
and with the coming of AI in particular, I find it
mm,
very useful, AI, but also very scary,
mm,
because how it is shaping us, how, it
mm,
is dependence of a certain kind, and
mm,
where the human begins and where the machine, takes over. That whole question
mm,
is something that is uh, is exhilarating and terrifying both.
mm. Terrifying more. To
Yeah.
me, it feels more terrifying because there's no privacy and there is no end to AI, what AI can do or what scientists can develop more. The other day, I was reading that they're developing artificial wombs. So a child can, like, you put the embryo there and it can grow to a full-fledged human being. So
Right.
that's quite scary thing. So
Yeah.
AI for me is more scary than good.
No, but if you think about it, you see, what has technology
Mm,
fundamentally? Technology is
Hmm.
the as I see it, it is the relentless need that human beings have to overcome every constraint that tells them this is what you
Hmm.
cannot, right?
Hmm.
So bit by bit, we can't walk beyond a certain speed, so we have mobility solutions. We can't travel in a certain distance, so we have the UAV. Can't communicate over a long distance, so we have communication devices. Everything we can't
Hmm.
lift beyond a certain weight, so we have cranes. We can't, I mean, all of that, right? So fundamentally we have been doing it forever. This is the
Hmm.
latest. As we keep doing that, as we keep, I mean, in a certain sense, artificial wombs are an extension of contraception. I mean, fundamentally what we started doing, saying, okay, our natural cycles of reproduction, let us have
Hmm.
control of, let us
Hmm.
they started doing that with contraception. Now we have,
Hmm.
in that line, we are kind of, the only thing is that for us today this feels, I that is not to say it is not terrifying. I'm simply saying that path we have started walking a long time back. And
Yeah.
now the fear is really the fact that we are now outsourcing virtually everything. And the question is
Hmm.
not what we are outsourcing, the question is what are we keeping, right?
Hmm.
If we give up reproduction, if we give up thinking, right, what do we retain? What,
Hmm.
so because the ratio earlier, in an earlier time, we had a lot with us, we were just outsourcing little bits, and so it felt like all
Hmm.
this is helping us, not replacing us.
Hmm.
Now
Hmm.
increasingly it feels like, are we making
Hmm.
ourselves redundant? I mean, because we are not keeping anything with,
Hmm.
we are,
Yeah,
more
that's
and more
true.
and more of ourselves we are
That's
outsourcing.
that is so true. So that I always feel, I don't know, that there's some discernment has to be there. Whosoever is working on these in these fields, no, you have to, like, there is, it's a very thin line, but you have to keep yourself uh, wary of that. Where to go, where not to go. What is required and what is not required. But then
Yeah, because the incentive,
that's for them.
unfortunately, I mean, well, that is true, but the fact is that there is no mechanism by which that discernment. It's not as if people, there are a lot of people in the technology area who are very concerned. It's not as
Hmm.
if there is no discernment. I mean, there are intelligent people,
Hmm.
there are sensitive people, they are very
Hmm.
mindful of the risks of what they're doing. But
But
the
you need only one greedy, non
exactly, exactly,
non committal person, I should say, to do that. Na? Then it is out of your hands.
exactly. So if
Even
one
if
person does it,
100
then others
people
have
who
to do
are
it.
good won't help. Hmm.
Yeah, one. See, the system is the system of incentives does not favor discernment. The system of incentives is that who
Hmm.
develops this first, who makes more money, who's able to get to market first,
Hmm.
who's able to, so
Hmm.
everybody recognizes the risks. But and what
Hmm.
happens is that technology moves much faster than society and governments do.
Hmm.
So by the time society formulates a response, historically that is what has
Hmm.
happened. Society, technology moves, and then society. For instance, we don't allow cloning, right?
Hmm.
Technology is
Hmm.
available for coding, but the
Hmm.
society has moved fast enough to say that this is not permitted, right?
Not
Right now,
required.
what is happening is that technology is moving so fast that
Hmm.
society has not had enough time nor
Hmm.
enough agreement to be able to shape a
Hmm.
proper response. And it may be too late. By
Or
the time
society is,
it'll be too late.
society is dumbfounded by the
That is true.
the advancement that is happening.
That is so
Yeah.
true.
So, yeah. So, is there a meme that best captures, like, of all you've seen through, that best captures the contemporary India?
I am not sure there is. I'm not sure there is one meme that does
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Uh, because that's why I say, there probably is, but I can't think of one right now. I can't think of one right now, which kind of one meme that
Hmm.
captures contemporary India.
Hmm.
I mean, there are lots of little parts of it, but one that captures
Hmm.
India, contemporary India,
Hmm.
not so much. Not so much. I'm actually not very good at remembering things on the spot. So,
Okay.
this is not my
Okay. Never
strong
mind.
suit.
Never mind. So, as we come to an end of this session, I want to ask you, what is what do you want the readers,
Right.
especially the skeptics like me of
Right.
the technology, to take
Yeah.
away from Memes for Mummyji?
So I want readers to appreciate perhaps the fact that of course, it is a very strong force, because very often it is invisible, and it is a very, it shapes, almost all of our lives. So just the recognition, the fact that, the second is the fact that it is complex. It is not simple. It
Mm,
is difficult to reduce it to good and bad, while there is good and while there is bad. But it is difficult to reduce it that it is one or the other. It has a range of effects, some of them very good, some of them horrible. So I mean, but
mm,
that's life. It is complex. It is the way it is.
mm,
So I think that's the other
mm,
thing. The third is therefore also to recognize the invisible ways in which it works, so that we are a little more mindful about its processes
mm,
and what is really at work.
mm,
Right? Then to also understand that a lot of way the behavior, our behavior, others' behavior, is being shaped by this. So it is it you know to have that understanding when we are analyzing things and when we are thinking about things, to know why this is
mm,
happening. And also, finally, I mean, in a sense, is to recognize that there is a threat also, that there is a
mm,
this is a and that, it's too much to hope for, and I'm not hoping for that. But at a certain level, eventually the responsibility is on people. if
mm,
if there if there is a if there is anything to be done about it, it won't happen anywhere else. It will only happen through people.
mm,
However they are organized,
mm,
however they act, whatever change has to
mm,
happen will happen through people.
mm, mm. So, ठीक है. So, thank you so much, Mr. Desai, for talking to me.
Thank
It
you. It was very
was an
pleasure.
interesting conversation, and it was a pleasure to be talking to you.
My
And I
pleasure, in
wish
fact.
you all the best for your forthcoming books. Are you writing some? Are you on
I'm
to some books?
I'm thinking about something. Yes.
Ah, okay. So I wish you all the best with that. And thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate this. Thank you. Bye bye.